On this episode of Drunk Mormon Podcast, we're going to talk about the reality of being a queer student at BYU, which is going to involve some vulnerabilities. Trigger warning. It's going to get a little real.
Oh, this is the podcast where we drink with the Mormons, strange and peculiar people they may be. Come hear the stories we were taught in our childhood. Come drink and join our eternal family. Come drink and join our eternal family.
Welcome to the Drunk Mormon Podcast.
Welcome back.
This is the podcast where we get drunk and talk about people who never get drunk.
The Mormon.
I'm David John Banks. I was raised Mormon.
I'm Lauren Sarkwich, and I've never been Mormon a day in my life.
And we're your hosts.
Hello.
Each week on this podcast, we teach Lauren a little bit more about Mormonism, whether that's stories from the Book of Mormon, stories from Mormon church history, peculiar things that Mormons believe. But this week, we are following up on last week's episode where we talked about BYU. Mm-hmm. And we're going to get a little personal.
Ooh.
And talk about what it's like to be gay at BYU.
Oh, wow.
We put a pin in it. We're taking the pin out.
Oh, yay! I feel like we haven't really done that before. It seems very official. We're finally taking a pin out.
Yep, and we're coming out again on the podcast. But first, we need to introduce our guests for this episode. Coming back to the podcast.
On the return tour.
We have my old freshman roommate from BYU, Josh Kohler.
Hi.
And
Hi.
we also have Grant here again, too.
Hey.
Hey.
And they're going to help me talk about it. Well, Josh is.
Okay.
Well,
Josh is going to help you and Grant's going to help me.
Perfect.
I'm working an internship here.
Yeah. Because Josh also was gay at BYU.
Did you guys know that about each other?
We'll get there.
Great. Put a pin in that. Unpin it later.
We'll come back to that really, really soon. Let's start drinking. Let's just get
Great.
to it.
This is a plan I can get behind.
Yeah, this is going to be a triggering episode for some of us in this room. So let's just get ahead of that anxiety, mute those feelings.
What's the best way to do that?
With alcohol.
A nice cocktail.
Yeah. So I asked Josh
Yeah.
to do one of his favorite drinks. And Josh, you picked?
I picked a Rose Kennedy, which is also known to everyone else in the scene as a vodka soda with just a splash of cranberry juice.
Oh, I didn't know it had a name. Like Rose Kennedy after the Kennedys?
Yes.
Oh,
After
wow.
the mom, the matriarch.
Did she like that drink?
It came from Cape Codder, which is a vodka cranberry. So I guess they were out in Cape Cod.
God. Why don't I really wish I knew. Rose Kennedy sounds like a much better name, and I feel less shitty ordering that cocktail.
It's pretty classy.
If I was calling it a Rose Kennedy.
Yeah, so what goes into a Rose Kennedy?
Well, like it says in the other name, there's vodka, there's soda, and a splash of cranberry juice.
Fantastic.
Great.
And look, we have the ingredients right here.
So first, you add your vodka, as much as you'd like.
Yeah. Okay.
If you talk to any of our Canadian friends up north, they call us the land of the free pour.
Ooh.
Because they measure their alcohol, and so does Utah. So, and
I
then
do remember that.
we add in our soda, which is pretty much, it's like half and half. Okay. As I said, I'm not a bartender.
You're doing great.
And then after you add your soda, you just give it a splash of cranberry, not just for taste, but for color.
Ooh, you drink with your eyes.
Ooh.
It's just to take out the kind of the dryness of the soda, to add a little bit of cranberry, just for...
Love it.
Cheers.
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 What are our thoughts? Our initial thoughts?
I definitely taste vodka.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
This is a drink I feel gets me. It's not complicated. It's very clear to the point.
Yeah, we're just here to get down
We're here to get down to business. So.
And talk about some repressed memories.
Some
Yes!
awful, terrible shit. So let's get ahead of that real quick.
Let's drink!
Let's get drunk!
Woo! Was Rose Kennedy cool?
I don't know.
She's not the one that she's not like Grey Houses who like lots.
Grey Gardens.
Grey Gardens. That's not Rose Kennedy.
No.
Yeah, she was JFK's mom. So,
Interesting.
9 kids.
Oh.
She had 9 kids.
And she lived until the age of 104.
Good for her.
God was on her side. I just want to, point of personal preference. The other episode with Andromeda, you told me people have gay face.
Yes.
Yeah.
How'd you not see his gay face?
Josh doesn't have a strong gay face
I
as other
don't.
people.
Does DJB?
No.
I'm sure other gays would disagree.
There's this one who makes, a career. She takes dick pics, but it's they're dressed up. So
Like
it's
the dicks are dressed
Stalin, yeah. Superheroes, or Stalin, or Chairman Mao.
Like hair and hats, or
Yeah, they have little jackets and hats, and she
You have a picture?
I'm gonna, yeah.
Wait, go back.
This is the dickest Kanye West.
Oh my god.
And this one's Napoleon.
Oh.
For this little dick.
I'm also not allowed to donate blood.
Same here.
Well, all of us. Yeah.
That's fucked up.
But you can donate blood, Lauren.
Actually, I can't because I'm anemic. So we're all in this together. Copyright.
So,
Where do we even start on this?
well, last week we talked about BYU and how the school was founded and da 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 da. So this week I specifically I thought it was worth doing a whole episode, because I knew I could get Josh to come back and we could do a full episode on the experience of being gay at BYU, because both Josh and I were gay at BYU and had very
Right.
different experiences.
Oh, okay.
But before we get into that,
Yeah.
I'm going to take a sip of my drink.
We'll all do it.
I'm gonna make another one.
And then we're going to rewind the clock.
Woo! Yeah.
Back to 1962.
Whoa.
That's way back.
Prior to the 1960s, there wasn't really any sort of official stance about homosexuality at BYU. It just wasn't a thing that they had any sort of position on. But in 1962, then president of BYU, named Ernest Wilkinson. Do you remember when we went to the Wilkinson Center?
Yes!
Named after him.
Okay.
That's the main student gathering building.
Yes.
So he meets with 2 Mormon apostles named Spencer Kimball. Nope. Yes.
Yes.
Named Spencer W. Kimball and Mark Peterson.
Okay.
And they have a little chat. And what they decide is that all homosexual students should be banned from attending BYU.
What?
They make this policy. It's not publicized. It's a secret policy. And I have a quote. It says, quote, "No one will be admitted as a student whom we have convincing evidence is a homosexual."
Convincing evidence.
What?
Not only that, they decided they were going to share information between the school and the Mormon Church. So if someone, say, was going to their personal congregation ecclesiastical leaders, like their bishop or their stake president, and saying, "Oh, I'm having these issues with homosexuality," that would make its way to BYU, and then when they applied in 2 years, they'd be like, "Nah, you can't."
Whoa! That's fucked up!
3 years later, President Wilkinson he spoke to all the students of the campus, as is common to do. Usually every year the president will make remarks. And guess what? I have another quote.
Yay!
He says, quote, "We do not intend to admit to this campus any homosexuals. If any of you have this tendency, may I suggest you leave the university immediately. We do not want others on this campus to be contaminated by your presence." End quote.
Whoa!
So nobody who was gay could enter or stay at BYU.
Fuck?
Though, to be fair, they decided that masturbation, which they called, quote, "self-abuse," that was not considered homosexual
Oh my
behavior.
god!
So you could technically masturbate.
But it's still bad.
Yeah,
Super
it's
bad.
abuse.
You wouldn't get kicked out of BYU for
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my god!
Then 2 years after that,
it finally was added to the university's honor code and merely said that, quote, homosexuality would not be tolerated.
What the fuck?
And they did propose a sentence banning masturbation as well, but they removed that in committee.
Who's the woman that ran for like Senate the other day? Not the other day, like a couple years ago, and she ran this campaign about like not masturbating.
I don't remember.
I remember her being like, if this is your stance, if you're literally like, we're not gonna masturbate, you do not represent anybody in America. Like, you don't get it.
Anyway, let's just keep fast forwarding through history. 1973, they softened their position a little.
Oh,
You might say
okay.
They went a little flaccid. And
You couldn't masturbate with that.
Mr. Wilkinson, he was succeeded by Dallin H. Oakes as the new president of the church. We have heard of Dallin H. Oakes' name before. He's currently an apostle and is either the most homophobic person in the church right now, and or B, the most closeted, repressed homosexual in the church right now.
Why not both?
My opinion.
Why not both?
Allegedly.
So, Dallin H. Oakes takes over as the president of BYU, and he decides that BYU would allow students who had repented of homosexuality and had, sort of forsaken, you might say, homosexuality for, quote, a lengthy period of time. They could stay. Now, here's the other thing about Dallin H. Oakes. What a great guy. Let's talk about what else he did as president.
Let's.
Big capital word, capital letters word, surveillance.
Wait, what?
Whoa.
Ready for this shit?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Surveillance and search of dormitories of students suspected of being gay. Mm-hmm. If they thought someone was gay, they just raid their apartment.
Is that constitutional?
It is, I think, on on-campus housing. Mm-hmm. I think you sign something that gives them the right
It's a
to do
private
it.
university.
It's bullshit. So he would random searches of students who were suspected to be gay to look for evidence. Also,
Of being gay?
Also, electronic surveillance. Electronic recording devices were planted on students.
What?
To try and,
So people
catch
were wearing a wire.
Also, BYU security would go to gay bars in Salt Lake City and stake out and look for BYU license plates. They would write down all the license plates and compare them to student records.
What?
And fake personal ads would be placed.
Okay, that...
To try and trap gay students.
Is that true or is that an urban legend?
We'll put sources on our website.
Okay.
So this all was happening. Trying to find them out. It was like a fucking
It's a witch hunt.
like
What?
Gestapo witch hunt bullshit. Also, not only that, under Dallin H. Oakes, guess what else was happening at BYU?
What?
Conversion therapy.
At the school?
Mm-hmm. Electroshock therapy specifically.
Where? How? Who was administering this?
So basically, if a student was caught, if they were caught fucking, they were gone. But if they were caught holding hands or they didn't do anything too far, then they could stay if they underwent conversion therapy. Then they could stay at school.
That's so fucked up.
Oh, also, I don't know how I forgot this. You would also be required to turn in other gay students.
Oh my fucking god.
Mm-hmm.
And this is do you remember 10 years ago? Do you remember that news article about a swim team in Florida where the coach was putting an alligator in the pool to make the girls swim faster?
What?
And then they interviewed the parents, and the parents were like, well, they swim so fast.
Oh
This is what this reminds me of. No parent was like, hey, what the fuck? This is illegal.
I mean, our country had a lot of hatred for the queer community at this time. This is in the 70s, right? Anyway, so all this bullshit is happening in the 70s. And I think it's 1977. There's a gay student and a gay instructor who sort of co-author this letter because there was this guy named Reed Payne. He was a professor who was teaching a lot of anti-gay shit. And so
Was he Bishop Prep?
this student, Cloy Jenkins, and an instructor, Lee Williams, they co-author this anonymous letter basically refuting all of these anti-gay teachings.
Yeah.
and I think they publish it, and I think they mail it anonymously to church leaders.
Okay.
So then in March of 1978, not long after, and people suspect it was in response to this, Apostle Boyd K. Packer delivered an address to all the students at Brigham Young University, which he titled "To the One." This was also published as a pamphlet,
Okay.
for a while would be distributed to people who were gay.
Probably to like teenage priesthood boys, probably.
Yeah, so-
and girls.
It's a 21-page pamphlet, and I'm like feeling emotional because this is where a lot of even current attitudes about gay people come from as far as church culture is concerned. A lot of this still exists. So here's some excerpts from it. It's like, if you can read the whole thing if you really want to. We'll have a link on our website to a version of it where you can read it. It's really bad. Here's some excerpts. Trigger warning. Quote, "I ask the indulgence of the 90 and 9 while I speak to the one." Moving on, he says, "And so now to the subject. To introduce it, I must use a word. I will use it one time only. Please note that I use it as an adjective, not as a noun. I reject it as a noun. I speak to those few, those very few, who may be subject to homosexual temptation. I repeat, I accept that word as an adjective to describe a temporary condition. I reject it as a noun, naming a permanent one."
What a fucking asshole.
He goes on to talk about, his pamphlet and talk basically breaks into 3 sections. 1, whether it's wrong. Spoiler alert, he believes it is.
Spoiler
2,
alert. M. Night Shyamalan plot twist.
They've been dead the whole time.
2, whether it's unchangeable. Spoiler alert, he doesn't think it is. He thinks you can change. And 3, how you can fix it. He conflates homosexuality with gender nonconformity. So he for instance, he literally says that gay men are trying to become women. He calls homosexual affection an addiction. He uses the word perversion a lot.
Oh my god!
He advocates for conversion therapy. And then he talks about how society has been trying to figure out, like, the cause of homosexuality for centuries. And, like, no one's been able to figure it out. But good news. Our boy Boyd K. Packer, he has the solution for us. He suggests, here's the deal. Here's the answer that no one's been able to figure out.
Antibiotics
No one's
and chicken.
No one's considered the fact that maybe the cause of homosexuality is selfishness.
Yeah.
God.
I remember
course.
that. Yeah.
What?
Though these attitudes aren't explicitly taught these days because they've sort of spun their PR to be a little more, to seem a little more accepting and loving of gay people. Spoiler alert.
They're not.
They're not. In my opinion, they are not. And in fact, in my opinion, their position towards queer people is so delicately crafted, it literally gaslights queer members of the Mormon Church to make them believe, oh, no, you're loved, we love you. But at the same time, we refuse to validate you. We refuse to support you in any way. And in fact, we remind you in a very passive-aggressive way on a constant weekly basis that you don't really fit what we're trying to do here. You can't really sit with us.
Yeah.
And yet they say they love us. It's really fucked up. It's enough to make some people think that they can make it work and they can stay. That was a position I had for a long time. It's like, I can figure it out. Until I realized,
I'll just
no,
keep changing.
I'll just keep catering to everybody else's comfort zone and diminishing and sterilizing my own sexuality. That's fine. I'm sure that'll turn out really good in the end.
This is gonna be great.
Let's fast forward.
Okay.
Because not a lot changes in about 30 years.
Oh my god.
In the year 2000, 13 students were suspended from school because, guess what? Guess what they were caught doing?
Oh my god.
Wait. When you said 13, I was like, they had an orgy. Good for them.
No,
now I'm thinking it's like they were holding hands.
Or watching something.
They were watching the television series Queer as Folk.
Yes.
Suspended.
What?
That's true. A year later, in 2001, 2 students, Matthew Grierson and Ricky Escato, they were expelled after literally unproven accusations of hand-holding and kissing. expelled.
Oh my god, this is some like I saw Goody Proctor Dancing with the Devil shit. This is a crucible.
Yeah, because here's the thing about the honor code. They don't have to prove the accusation.
Mm-hmm.
So this was like a very clear reminder that the honor code literally banned you for coming out. You couldn't even acknowledge your sexuality.
Oh my god.
And if you were suspected of homosexuality, you were forbidden from, quote, dating, holding hands, kissing, romantic touching, showering, clubbing, etc., as well as regular association with homosexual men. So if you were suspected of being homosexual, you couldn't even talk to someone else who was gay, let alone touch them. Even if you're not dating, you could just be pals. Joshua is demonstrating touching right now.
Poke.
We touched each other in like platonic ways.
There's a video of us you making me dance. Remember?
I'm like standing behind him and holding his arms,
and you're just making me dance to Michelle's music.
We had good times. Anyway, in 2007, BYU Honor Code changed its policy on gay people.
Okay.
And they made it so that you now could acknowledge your sexuality without getting expelled or threatened.
Okay.
You could not express any gay affection, and you could not advocate. They describe advocating as, quote, seeking to influence others to engage in homosexual behavior or promoting homosexual relations as being morally acceptable. So you could say you were gay, but you weren't allowed to say it was okay to be gay.
Right.
And you couldn't, like, touch nobody. Now, here's the other thing about 2007.
Uh-huh.
That was when me and Josh started at BYU as freshmen.
Oh my god.
I was wildly in denial of my sexuality.
Uh-huh.
I was not as much. It was kind of like we were put into college. We were on our own. Like, we said goodbye to our parents.
Yeah.
We were all doing things on our own. And I just kind of like pieced things together that happened in high school and that were happening at BYU and being like, oh, maybe this means I'm this. And like, literally the moment I told myself, maybe you're gay, like, things just made sense.
Yeah.
I was just like, duh. I'm like, this wasn't a phase. Like, this was actually like, this is me. Things just made sense.
Yeah.
So when did that happen?
Towards the end of our freshman year.
Fun fact, Josh and I never talked about our sexuality to each other while we lived together.
Yes.
Okay.
Josh brought it up kind of sort of one time.
Kind of, sort of. It was like, hey, are you experiencing feelings of the same sex? It was like...
You didn't say it that explicitly.
super direct.
I was having a hard time because I was...
And I knew he was having a hard time.
And he knew why.
Okay.
He's smart.
I sensed it.
And so he basically
Well, because I was
said-
going through kind of the same thing, but
Yeah.
I wasn't like taking it out of myself probably as much as you were. Is that valid
That's
to
fair.
say?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was 100% taking it out of myself.
Yeah, and I wasn't.
So Josh, this is my memory, but I remember I was hanging out with Josh in his room. Our other roommate, Michelle, he had left, and it was just the two of us. And Josh was like, "Hey," something like, "Hey, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? You like if something's up, like you can tell me. It won't change how I feel about you."
I remember you were sitting on Michelle's bed. I was sitting on my bed. We were looking at each other from across the room.
Ships crossing in the night.
Yeah.
And I played super dumb. During my second semester of freshman year is when I sort of had the linchpin of, oh, this isn't going away. Because there was this guy and he was really attractive, and I had some other friends who were mutual friends, and they're like, you really talk about this guy a lot. And I was like, oh my god, people can tell. And I started like spiraling in panic. And, you know, it's fine, but also it's like, this isn't going away. I need to accept this.
Yeah.
Also, can I tell you how I came out to Josh?
Yes.
This was back in like 2007, 2008, when we hadn't learned as a society how obnoxious it was to be cryptic in Facebook statuses. So I posted a status that was something along the lines of, so-and-so and so-and-so knows, and Josh Kohler might know.
Okay, you like called me out on that status.
And Josh messages me, and then
Immediately.
and I come out to him, and then he's like, "Oh, me too." And I was like, "Holy shit!" I said, "Holy shit," because I was swearing by then. I had no idea. Didn't even cross my mind because I was so focused on myself and my own struggle.
That happens.
But you're good at hiding it,
I
though.
want to talk about like you guys realize, and when you talk about it, it seems like kind of a cathartic thing where you start being like very genuinely you. Is that kind of what happened?
Yeah.
And when you talk about it, I feel like in BYU, it's very different.
It is.
It's like you realize it, and then you try to like tuck it away.
But
Yes.
when I went home for the summer after that freshman year,
Yeah.
I kind of had a freak out moment, which had I not had that moment, I probably would have stayed at BYU and graduated from BYU. But I'm this 18-year-old kid home for the summer from BYU after like I was in a relationship with another guy at the
So
school.
you came out at the school.
To yourself.
So we'll talk about your story, and then we'll talk about my story with BYU. Does that make sense?
My story's a lot shorter, so because I was only there for a year. So
What happened? Let's go through.
okay.
So you're like, ding, 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 I'm gay. Go.
So even before I went to BYU, I had moments with other guys that I just like pushed off aside as like, oh, that's just a phase. That's not me.
Yeah.
Because I was so focused on being like the example. I was like, you know, the kid that was really good. When I went to BYU and was kind of like left on my own, got to be good friends with the music students, found out there was a whole kind of underground scene
Oh.
Really? It's
like a lot of gay students, but like people knew, but they weren't explicit about it. The guy that I ended up dating for a couple months, he was like explicit about like, oh, I'm really attracted to you, and I was just kind of like, oh, that's really nice, but yeah, like, you know, I'm not gay. Months went on, we like hung out more, and then I was just kind of like, maybe I have feelings for him. Like, maybe that's what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Anyway, that spring term was when I started dating the guy that I dated.
Yeah.
Fast forward to me going home for the summer, you know, things were great, and I was planning on coming back to BYU. Like, I had my apartment lined up. And then I just had one day at home. My parents were out of town. I had the house to myself, and I just, like, broke down. I just, like, broke down and was like, what am I doing? Like, I need to be, like, in the church, and I need to be doing this and this and this, and, like, had this, like, big freak out moment. And so I turned myself in. I'm thinking, oh, if I turn myself in and I'm honest about it and, like, do what they tell me to do, like, give the name of the guy that I was with and all that, that they would let me just go back to school and, like, just
Oh my god,
go.
that's some making of a murderer shit.
Yeah. They were like, you know, if you give the name, you'll have a better chance of, like, you know, just being able to go back to school. Because this happened during the summer between my freshman and sophomore
Are
year.
your parents there when they're
Yes.
interviewing you?
Yes, they are. They interviewed me first, but then my parents came in with the council.
Uh-huh.
And, like, both my parents are crying. They're just like, oh my god, we love our son so much. Like, my dad's crying. Like, that's the big thing. When my dad is crying. And he's just like, you know my son, you know him, we love him. Just send him back to school, let him just continue on what he was doing.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't let me go back. They're like,
Did you give the name?
oh, I did. And guess what happened? He had one semester left. He got kicked out for a
No.
year. Oh, yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
He had one semester left, and he had to wait another year to graduate. Oh, yeah. It's bullshit.
So they wouldn't let you go back.
No, well, after my first year at Oregon, I was like the good Mormon boy. I was
Yeah.
really good. Like I hadn't drank at all. Like I was focused on like trying to go back to BYU. And I could have gone back, but I chose not to.
Good for you.
Yeah, seriously though.
Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Those few years were...
I'm so sorry that happened. No person should have to deal with that.
No. And to put you on the spot like that.
But not only like being with, like, hanging out with you guys now, like, you guys are so fun and, like, present and, like, yourselves, but, like, 18-year-old you?
I was
like,
a kid.
That's a child.
Oh my god, I was a kid.
To do that to a kid
I
is so
had
fucked
no
up.
idea what I was doing. I had
Of course,
no
you're
clue.
18 years old.
But to hear that you were like sitting at home alone, like wrestling with that, and yes, of course you're gonna go like back and forth, and
Oh yeah, and I went. Yeah. Oh, it was like I emailed my boyfriend, like this long email. I was just like, I didn't know what I was doing, and like I like called my mom. I was just like, like not a fun summer. Yeah, that's my story.
Shall we segue into yours?
Oh my god.
I was only there for a year, so
Let me just like say right now, it took me 8 years to graduate from BYU. Looking back, I see that this is a culmination of two main ingredients. One, I kept finding myself latching to projects, theatrical and film projects, that kind of like were sort of a safe haven from my frustration and depression of being gay at BYU. It was a very difficult environment. But I found that when I worked on a film set and I worked on a play, like I forgot about all of that because I was focused on creative and I was focused on storytelling, and I didn't, like, there was so much work to be done that I didn't have time to think about how
The
frustrated
existential
and
dread.
sad I was.
Yeah.
But yet at the same time, I was incredibly depressed. And I found that I couldn't take a full semester's worth of classes. So most of my semesters, I took part-time, half-time even, 6 credits, because I couldn't pass more than that. I started therapy, which I recommend to anybody, even if you have no sadness in your life, even if you feel like you're doing great. Therapy is amazing.
And
if
you
you
did
can
it through
afford
the school, right?
I did it through the school. And the therapy at the school, to their credit, they're not allowed to tell anything you say to the honor code office.
yeah,
Full confidentiality.
That's good.
which is what it should be.
And for a couple of years, I had a really great therapist until she ended up moving on to something else. So my second semester of freshman year, I accepted the fact that my sexuality was not going to change. I acknowledged that going on a Mormon mission wasn't going to cure me of being gay. And I slowly started coming out to people.
Okay.
The first friend I came out to, I couldn't even tell her. I wrote it down. I wrote a multi-page note by hand, and I asked my friend if we could go on a walk. And I handed her the note that I'd written. And we just walked while she read it.
How'd that go?
She was, I don't know, like weirdly happy for me.
Yeah.
But it's like I couldn't even say out loud that I was gay. I had to write it down. And I don't even think I said I was gay. I think I said I had same gender attraction, which is the Mormon euphemism.
Yeah.
Same gender
SGA.
attraction.
It makes it sound like a disease.
Well,
you know?
it makes it non-sexual.
Yeah. So my experience with coming out was that I felt like I was coming out person by person. I would just sort of tell people. And then it got to a point where I felt like I wasn't necessarily broadcasting my sexuality, but I wasn't hiding it either. So if anybody asked, I would tell them. I mean, remember, you were allowed to acknowledge you were gay, but you couldn't advocate it for a long
Right.
time. So I was sort of trying to dance that line of like, I'm trying to own who I am. I'm trying to avoid, I don't know how to say it besides just like people being assholes.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out how to balance being gay and being Mormon. And the interesting thing about BYU is that everybody you know just about is Mormon. There's people who aren't Mormon who go to school there, but pretty much everyone's Mormon. And so there's this incredibly strong culture of homogeny, and you feel physically anytime you departure from it.
Yeah.
I remember,
that.
like, because of the culture, I felt like my feelings were normal. I felt like my depression was normal. Anytime that something just didn't fit, I felt like it was my fault. Because also at the same time, I still like believed, for whatever reason, for the longest time, I believed what I was being taught. And I understood that maybe with gay issues specifically, it was a little gray, and maybe we didn't have a full understanding. But for the most part, I was like, well, this is normal, this is reasonable, this is how I'll feel anywhere I go. And so it never really crossed my mind in any significant way to transfer. And also, BYU doesn't transfer credits that well.
Ooh, no, they don't.
I don't know if it's made an episode, but we have definitely talked about the fact that at BYU, when a man meets a woman, they're sort of immediately judging whether or not there's marriage potential because of how much that pressure is put on the students. If you're gay and you go to that school, they're not necessarily interested in like having that strong of a relationship with you because what they're really trying to do is get married. And so starting my sophomore year, as I started to like come out to more and more people, what also started to emerge was how out of place I felt.
I can't believe you were there for 8 years.
I'll be honest. I think this
comfortable?
is fair to talk about. But also like content warning. I literally survived that school. There were 2 very specific times where their attitude towards homosexuality was a huge contributing factor to my suicidality, my suicide ideation. There were 2 very specific times where I was very seriously considering ending my life. Different reasons both times why I chose not to. But that's a reality for gay BYU students. Definitely while I was in school. There was someone I knew. It wasn't explicit, but like you could kind of tell when other people were queer, male or female. You could tell when people were, and she ended her life. Yeah, I don't know the details. I just know that one day she was there. And she was gone. And I remember I would cross paths with her, and I liked her. We weren't like that close, but the kind of people like we would pass each other in the hallway, and she was gone. And it wasn't explicitly said that it was because she was queer, but like you knew. She wasn't the only one. There's actually a lot of LGBT suicides at BYU and Utah.
Utah especially, yeah.
Because the thing is that even though they try and say, oh, well, we love everybody, the way that the culture is set up at BYU is like, I had so many friends who loved me, but I knew that I couldn't talk to them about, like, I couldn't talk to them about boys I liked. I couldn't talk to them about dates I went on. First of all, because I would get in trouble for going on dates. They loved me as long as they didn't have to deal with the reality of my sexuality, which meant me acting on it. So like I could be gay as long as I was like really celibate and didn't date and it was just sort of like, oh, a friend.
As like a kid going to college, like you're supposed to be in a safe place to live and learn and be and exist away from the first time you're away from like your family and your nest. Like it's supposed to be a safe space. It should be a safe space. And like
for many students it was. For queer students, the message was very clear that we didn't belong. And from some students, you definitely got the impression that you weren't even wanted. Because you complicated their view of the world. And they would rather live a simple life.
In a bubble. Literal bubble.
And you know what? To be fair, there were so many people who I was friends with who knew I was gay who didn't care.
Yeah.
For a large part of the student body doesn't care, especially nowadays, I'm sure.
Yeah. What have you learned?
I'm not sure. I feel like I kind of wish I had known this like when we were touring BYU. Like now going back and listening to that recording of like I had a really fun day at BYU.
No, it's actually fun. Like it's a fun campus. It really is.
I have so many good memories.
Me too.
Anyway, We might as well move on to the best part of any more, which is the activity.
The activity.
The activity. Every week we have an activity, and this week our game is called Privilege Schmivilege.
Ooh.
So some people might deny that the rules are different for straight people and gay people. They might feel like everybody's held to the same standard.
I'm gonna win this.
So what we're going to do is we're going to play a game. So I have a list of things, and it's Lauren's job to determine whether it's something that a straight person is allowed to do, a gay person is allowed to do, or no one is allowed to do,
Okay.
according to the university
Honor code.
and the honor code.
Okay.
Cheating on a test.
Nobody.
No one's allowed to do, correct. Wear a sleeveless shirt.
Nobody.
Nobody, that's correct.
I know this one.
Hug a gay person.
Straight people can do that.
Only straight people can do that. A gay person hugging
Can't hug
another
another
gay
gay
person
person.
may be accused of expressing homosexual feelings. Kiss someone they like.
Straight people.
Only straight people can do that. Drink alcohol.
Nobody.
Correct. No one's allowed to drink alcohol at BYU. Have premarital sex.
Nobody.
Correct. No one's allowed to have premarital sex.
Not even straight people.
Publicly state their sexual orientation.
Everybody.
That's true. Go on dates.
Straight people.
Straight people are allowed to do that. Gay people are not. Receive public encouragement as well as validation for going on dates.
Straight people.
Only straight people. Masturbate.
Nobody. No, wait. Straight people. Gay people. Everybody. Everybody can masturbate. Only the dudes.
Technically, everyone can masturbate. It's not an official rule, but
Right.
also if you confess to masturbation to your bishop, they might tell you shouldn't do that.
I thought it was okay if you were married.
Yeah.
You can masturbate if you're married?
Why not?
Because you should be having sex instead of masturbating.
Well, what if she's pregnant and like 9 months due?
I don't know. Watch pornography.
No one.
I'm gonna go with no one.
No one. No one's technically supposed to watch pornography. And our last one. Share an apartment with a significant other while unmarried.
Nobody.
Technically, gay people can do it if they're real discreet
Yes!
about it.
You did it!
I've done it twice!
Wait, don't cheer for that.
Yeah.
Don't cheer for that.
I mean, it's not healthy, but, like, that is, like, one, like, weird backwards thing that gay people can get with if they're real discreet. Anyway, that's our activity, and that's our lesson this week. If you have something you want to share, a comment, a question, a correction, you can always reach out to us at drunkmormonpodcast@gmail.com or slide into our DMs or follow us on Instagram and Twitter at drunkmormonpod. We're on patreon.com/drunkmormonpodcast if you want to support the show with your credit card. And if you have kind things to say, or honest things to say, you can always drop us a rating and review on iTunes or your podcast provider, whoever they are. I would love to thank Josh and Grant for coming back for this episode. Woo! As, like, triggering as it was. And, of course, as always, thank you, Lauren.
No, thank you.
And thank you, Oscar, for breathing so heavily because you need to go outside and poop. But until next week, I'm David John Banks.
I'm Lauren Sackwich.
I'm Josh Kohler.
And I'm Grant Taylor.
And now we bid unto all
Farewell.
And hey, if you're listening to this podcast, whether you're a student at BYU or otherwise, and you are dealing with really difficult feelings of depression, anxiety, suicide ideation, or anything that requires more than what you are capable of dealing with by yourself, please reach out to professional help. There are suicide hotlines linked to in our website, and we are ever advocates of therapy if you can afford it. If you don't know where to find resources, please email us and we will direct you to places that can help. And at the end of the day, if nothing else, know that here in this room and in your headphones, we love you, we believe you, we think you are valid,
We see you, and we want you here.
Thank you for listening.
And thank you for sticking around.